Hi everyone, this is Simply SCAdian, no title required. I am Zoph. Simply SCAdian is a show that is based on regular folk in the SCA. We love our peers, we think they're awesome people, but we find that the people who don't have peerages or baronages have an awful lot to offer to the conversation. And so this show is all about talking with those people. If you have someone that you can recommend as a guest, please let us know. We have a poll, a form that's saved to our Facebook page, and we'd love to get people that are not in the Mid Realm, the East Kingdom, or Atlantia, because that's where most of our guests have come from, because that's where we live. So any other guests would be great. And yes, so it's just me tonight. Lucas has rehearsal for a play that he's been cast in. So it's just me with our amazing, wonderful, great person, awesome guest, Christina Noëlle. Hi, Christina.
Hey,
So Christina's from Southwest Constellation, which is Jasper, Indiana. Christina is mostly known for Rapier and is Constellation Regional Commander for Penzic 51. Having been in the SCA, specifically the Middle Kingdom, for over 20 years, she mostly dabbles in various A&S areas. Scribal, jewelry making, embroidery, cooking, and stained glass capture her attention to greater or lesser degrees, depending on available time and resources. For the last 4 years, she's been the owner admin of the Midrealm Discord server, started in reaction to the COVID pandemic as a way for people to have a virtual hangout space. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show tonight, Christina.
no problem.
So let's dive right in with the number one question we ask all of our guests. How did you find the SCA?
I knew about it when I attended Purdue up in Rivenstar, but I did not join at that time. I don't know why in retrospect, except for I was young and married young. And I thought that my world was supposed to revolve around my spouse.
Mm.
That was poor choice of thought patterns. And then we moved to Southern Indiana after he graduated, then I graduated, and then we wound up down here for a job that he had gotten. And I was bored after 18 months of spinning around the house and going to the gym because that was all I did. And he said, "You need a hobby." And so I pulled the SCA up for some reason and went to one of the meetings. And there I was,
What did you think of the SCA when
stuck.
you first joined?
Thought it looked fun. I still contend that to some extent I am still in it at this point because Master Flurry and Mistress Swanwin of they're out in Lincoln now. They used to be in our area. Uh, they fibbed. They said that the third time I showed up to socialize at fire practice, I had to put on armor and at least try something. And I looked at the heavy guys and I was like, no, no, thank you. I did not appreciate looking like a tank. And so I tried rapier and I became hooked.
Yeah. So what is it about Rapier that drew you in?
I don't know. I think it was the endorphins, to be
Right.
honest. The fact that I can hit somebody and get away with it, which is something I was told was a no-no when I was growing up, especially as a girl.
Right, right, right. Do you have a persona?
Roughly, I'm late Tudor, early Elizabethan. I live in the north part of France after having served time in the court of Henry VIII due to the Reformation. My persona is Catholic, which is funny because I'm agnostic. And I was escaping the Reformation. And the weird, because for some reason, females that participate in the SCA by themselves feel this ridiculous urge to have a guy in their backstory. even if he's like invisible guy or two guys or whatever. And Mistress Brigid has out in Antier has actually talked about this before. And she is, and I agree that it's kind of silly, and I don't know why we do it. But my theory of why I wound up in Calais is that my father wanted inroad into being able to trade on the continent. And so part of my dowry was to be wed to this wine person in the north of France. And then it'd set up a trade route.
Nice. That's cool. Okay,
So that was silly.
well, I like that though. So, but let's dive into that a little more. I mean, in Zoph's persona story, my persona story is that Zoph is a widow. That, the Hungarians, I have grandchildren at this point, my persona would, but is it this misunderstanding that women had to be married or something bad would happen to them? Or do we just not have enough historical evidence of single women surviving?
I don't really know. I know that for a large part of at least, the information hasn't dramatically in the last 20 years, and I haven't kept up, unfortunately. But I know that a lot of times up until I got involved, it was still pretty much the historical narrative that women weren't businesswomen. Women weren't, or if they were businesswomen, they worked in what the tour guide at Pompeii metaphorically called dance halls because there were children present. Or, maybe they, were, sometimes they might have been able to do spinning and weaving and stuff like that, but usually it was part of a collective, and there was usually a guy or something like that in charge of the collective. And they still were like married to somebody who went off to the mines or butcher or whatever in town.
Right. Does
So it
your
always seemed like there had to be a guy involved, but I'm pretty sure that the historical record has started, seeing that's not necessarily true.
right, right. Does your husband play in the SCA at all?
He's been to a few events, and he did get a away for the exchequer position. It became vacant in the shire that I was in at the beginning, which was Stonecroft, which is sadly now dissolved. And so he emergency took over the exchequer position. He earned his AOA for that service. But then he hasn't done much in the SCA in the last 15 years or so.
Gotcha. So tell me, what does it mean to be what is your position? I can't remember it now. The regional commander for Penzic 51. So what does the Rapier regional commander do?
Basically, I keep attendance and report up the chain to the XO and general of Rapier as to, how many we expect every day to show up for the battle the next day. And then, get the information as to what the overall plan is and where the region falls into that plan. And then I get my troops together, and then I lead them through that plan the next day during the battle.
Wow. So is this something, were you assistant to somebody before so that you know what you're doing, or are you pretty green coming into this?
Penzic 50, I was regional XO under Warder Mal
Well,
of
fine.
Northern. What?
I said, okay then.
And at Penzic 48, I believe, was the one before the pandemic.
Yes,
Seems about right.
yes.
I was kind of a shadow second XO under Warder Lou, who had decided that I needed to learn command. And he said it would be good for me because at the time he was my warder. So, okay. I had already been interested in it for several years. It's just he finally was the one that said, okay, you want to learn how to do this? Fine. You
So
shadow me. and you're going to learn. You're going to learn everything I do. It's like, okay. And it
So,
worked.
what is it that draws you to this role?
I don't know. It was hard for me to find a space in the rapier community. A lot of people, they find their space like Logos is, if you face him in tournament, it's like, okay, Logos, you name a master and he's, in there. He's like the historical guru of gurus, basically. So when it comes to tournaments and stuff, he has a Zen mode, and other people, they'd like to do their, the marshaling and taking care of paperwork and stuff like that. And that's their home. So some people are very much their home is in the tournament field. Some people are more into the marshaling and doing the paperwork, but they do still enjoy fighting. And then I was kind of like, yeah, I enjoy fighting. I do enjoy doing service, but I'm not so hot smokes on the tournament field. And so I was looking around and I was like, wonder if I could do this command thing. So I gave it a try and it worked, and I really enjoy it.
So, is becoming a master of defense one of your goals?
At this point, I don't know. And that's because I have the issues related to the being a mother and being an educator, both of which are not always problems for people. But when it's an hour each way to my favorite practice, which is Bloomington within its and it's on Wednesday night, it does cause problems if I have to work Thursday morning. And then I still have to make sure that things are taken care of at home with, my son Connor, who plays his name in the SCA is Connor, and make sure that he's got all his homework done and all that. And so sometimes it's hard to go and do things that would help me become a master of defense. But I do like being known for my willingness and ability to serve. If that makes any sense.
That absolutely makes sense. So let's dive into wait, let's talk about that a little more. I was just gonna move on, but having raised two children in the SCA, one of whom is still in the SCA at the age of 25, and the other one hates the SCA and will never go to another event again as long as God is alive. Um, it's interesting how many people have to put their SCA careers on hold for children. And
Yes. And that's
it,
what I do feel like that kind of happened with me. And then it, came back in fits and starts because, there's always the getting the non-SCAdian partner on board with, hey, would you be okay, being, I know it's not babysitting when it's your own child, but, could you be dad for a day to this 2-year-old that usually drives you crazy because you don't interface with 2-year-olds very well. And then, hey, can you hang out with him for a day so I can go to an event or, whatever. It's just hard. Now that he's older, because he's 13, it's easier, but it's still, one of those balancing acts of making sure that everything's taken care of at home so I can go play and not have to worry about them having problems.
right, right. And it's interesting because I was in the same boat as you. I was married at the time my kids were young, and he was not in the SCA at all. So I had to balance when the kids came with me to events versus when they stayed home with their dad. And being a single parent in the SCA, right? I called myself a single SCAdian because I was married, but I still, he didn't have anything to do with the SCA. And I found there were days that I would go to an event and he would last 2 hours and we'd all have to go home.
Yeah. But it's getting better now. I've been able to go out to Penzic, essentially 2 Penzics back to back. If you exclude Penzic 49, which was very lightly attended from what I understand. I didn't look at the final number, but I gather it wasn't that big.
No, it wasn't. No. So you'll be at Penzic this year. Is your son coming with you?
That's yet to be determined. I have to double check his summer schedule. He got invited as an incoming 8th grader to join the high school marching band
Wow.
because of his ability and what they needed as far as instrumentation. So he may not be able to go, just for the simple fact of it is a very competitive marching band in the area, and they have several practices a week, and I can't remember how close to the beginning of school they run. I don't remember if they drop and, kind of punt back, or if they just keep going full speed ahead. He would like to go again. He misses it,
Yeah, but
but he
that's
knows
the age
that,
of Pensic's fun. You know, when you're 13, 14, that's you're allowed to romp around by yourself and stuff, and little feral packs of children we talked about on the last show, these little preteens, early young teens who find corners and play Magic and D&D together.
yeah, which is what he would love to do, but he's also real cognizant of he accepted a responsibility. And he's also one of the better tuba players in the school system. So it's pretty much, he knows that he's got a lot of people depending on him.
Right, right. It's hard.
And we've kind of worked on establishing the ethos that goes with that. When you have people depending on you, you have to work as hard as you can to fulfill their expectations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good luck with that. So let's talk about Discord. For my non-tech savvy people, what is Discord?
Discord can be used as a visual, audio visual channel. I've seen people that do it, but Discord is primarily the way that we implement it, text-based. And it's basically you go in and there's a big room and everybody's in there, but then there's all these side rooms where you can break off and have break off conversations. Like, we have 2 rooms for heraldry, one's for like heraldic consultation, and then the other's like, oh, I want to do a deep dive on why they didn't think orange existed, which has happened.
Wow. Okay. So
and
how,
then
go ahead.
and then we have other rooms for the various combat arts and the various arts and sciences. The newest room we have there is horticulture, because I realized we had animal husbandry and we didn't have anything to talk about growing plants except for the culinary channel, and not everybody grows plants for their culinary, but a lot of people grow plants, you know, for their non-period culinary stuff. So, they like to have a place to talk about, the best way they start their seeds, or get their, if they go to the store and get their starters or whatever.
So how many people are part of the Mid-Realm Discord channel?
The whole entire server has a population of just over 725. I don't quite have a handle on how many of that is active.
Mm.
The newer the people, the more active they tend to be. I know that it seems like it was a good core of maybe about, I want to say 25 to 50 people for probably the first 3.25 years or so. Even though there were several hundred people that had signed up initially, they really didn't talk much, or they just used it to maybe pop in and check on an announcement or something, or whatever that they'd heard about, or somebody said, would poke them on Facebook and say, hey, they're talking about you over there, and they'd come in and, get in on the conversation. But then otherwise, just within the last 6 to 9 months, it's just exploded. I made a joke that when I went over to Italy, I'm like, okay, you guys, I'm not going to be online much, I don't think. I was online more than I thought. Don't burn the place down. And then I would get done at the end of the day and get back to my hotel room, and I'd be like looking at the channels. I'm like, I can't keep up anymore. I used to be able to keep up on all the conversations every day, and now it just doesn't happen.
Right. So, I mean, I'm on the channel. I just never remember to go there. I sort of have a limited brain capacity on how many groups. So, what gave you the idea to start a Mid-Realm Discord channel?
I'd seen the announcement that the SCA was pretty much mandating that all kingdoms shut down all activity because of the COVID pandemic and the obvious, insurance risk, I'm sure. And I was like, well, people are going to still want to have a ability to talk. And I know that there's a lot of people that do use Zoom for work because work from home was, you know, starting to be a bigger thing back then, 4 or 5 years ago. And so Zoom was being a thing, Teams was being a thing, but all of that was like very work heavy related at the time, it seemed. And Discord was created basically by and for gamers. So I felt it was a bit of a different environment and vibe that we could have there. And then we could just set it up to be text based. Because as long as you just use the text part of Discord, it can be operated very thin on a very thin internet connection, because I do have people nearby me that they have to get their internet through satellite. They're members of the SCA, and their internet service is all via a satellite provider. So they have very little bandwidth a month. And so they essentially have to ration everything. So they can't get in onto a video session because they don't have the capacity for it.
Right.
But text, they might be able to handle text. And text is great for screen readers.
So how did you get the word out about the Discord channel when you created it?
It was created unofficially at first, and for probably about the first 2 3/4 years. I could be wrong. And I just put it on the mid-realm Facebook group and a few other mid-realm related Facebook groups. And then, people just started coming in, and then they'd share the invite link, and it just got around that way. And then we've got people from other kingdoms that found it, and there you go.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about. Do all of the kingdoms have Discord channels?
I don't know. I know that one member of the mid-realm Discord, we call them Zenlet because I'm not very good at the HU word in Chinese. It's HU Zen. So I don't know exactly how to pronounce that, but we've called them Zenlet, and she's on like 9 kingdom Discords or something like that. And she says she tries to be on all of them that she knows about, but sometimes, she may not have found one. But she said that in one recent post on the Mid-Realm Word Fame Wednesday, she said that somehow you guys just do everything that embodies the SCA better, which kind of shocked me.
Tell me, I mean, because when I log into it, which periodically Discord will send up a notification saying, hello, you have not gone in a long time, go to Discord. Um, it seems like there's people who just talk all day long about everything.
Yeah.
So, because mostly I hang out in just like the general group, but
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there's these specialty groups, how active what is the most active specialty channel that you have?
I'd have to say it kind of depends on what's going on in the kingdom. Definitely towards Penzic and Kingdom ANS type events. The ANS channels get a little heavier involvement, but a lot of the time, Scribal is pretty big. Heraldic is pretty big, and there's a pretty sizable crossover between the two, because a lot of times the scribes are like, they go in and they go, oh, okay, I've got an award for this person. I can read words, but words are not forming a picture in my brain. So they'll bop into one of the heraldry things and say, hey, can I PM somebody this blazon I found in the ONA, and then have them, tell me what the picture looks like so I can put it on the scroll.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of crossover stuff like that. Sometimes the rapier armor, like rapier armor construction can fall over into the fabric and fashion or the fiber and fashion, because rapier people, their armor is generally cloth. So we have to, share a lot of information as to what cloth passes and, the good suppliers, because we've had time where we've had suppliers that just suddenly were not good. It was like just suddenly they ran a load and the quality of their material did not stand up as high as it normally did.
Woof.
So the people in the fashion group will say, "Hey, this seems like it's unraveling stronger. Can anybody over in Rapier, kind of take a look at it?" We'll take a look at it and we'll go, "Oop, yeah, that's not good anymore."
Wow. So do you, okay, nope, that's not a Discord question. Let me write it down. Um,
But
no, the question, I'll ask it you after we're done talking about discard. So, um, with Discord, what do you think is the attraction?
the fact that we are a very big kingdom, we have broken off some. We've broken off what, Eldemir, Callantyr, and what, part of Meridies, all of Meridies, I think.
Eldemir, Callantyr, North Shield.
Oh, North. But even given losing all that land, we're still pretty big. We go from the northern tip of Michigan, not the upper peninsula, but the lower peninsula, all the way down to, part of Kentucky. And then as wide as from Illinois all the way over to, Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania-Ohio line. So this gives a lot of people the ability to network and find people in a way that they normally wouldn't have, I think. So they're able to go, instead of, hearing about this person that is a specialist in what their little niche is that they're getting really excited about, they can get on the Discord and, oh, that person's actually here. Like if somebody didn't really, really describe them, they've heard a lot of tales about Matildus or Saraswati or, any one of half a dozen other scribes that are on the channel, and names are escaping me at the moment. They can all go, "Hey," and jump in there. And then, there's good odds that one of those big names in the discipline will be there, and they'll be able to ask them questions directly, like, "Hey, I just started getting into gold leafing and my gold leafing is not sticking. What am I doing wrong?" And Saraswati or other people will jump in and say, "So what's your I don't remember what the medium is called, that you're trying to use it to stick. What are you trying to stick it to? Are you trying to stick it to Are you trying to stick it to vellum? You trying to stick it to Bristol?" They know all that
So it
much better
sounds
than I
like
do.
your knowledge of stuff in the SCA has grown simply because of the Discord channel.
Yes, a lot of people's information and everything has grown because of the Discord channel.
That's pretty
You
cool.
know, people I think, have gotten involved in things that they normally wouldn't have if it wasn't for the Discord channel, because they're too scared or something. And then they'll be able to create a friend in Discord that is into the thing. And I'm pretty sure I've heard at least one or two people say, "Hey, let us set up something and, we'll work through this, either on Facebook Messenger together or, maybe their own private Zoom or Google Chat or whatever, to be able to work on that project in like a, you know, project circle type situation and get that person more involved and into whatever they're doing."
Do you have Discord meetups at events?
I have not yet. And that's only because I've been doing my um, Army Command stuff or recovering from Army Command stuff, whichever way you want to look at it. So I haven't done that yet. I would like to at some point. Perhaps I could arrange something, this fall at my local event, potentially. I have no idea. Or, arrange something at a Sternfeld event, which, those happen like every other month, it seems.
It
Oh,
does.
just kidding. We love you, Sternfeld. Thank you for working so hard for the rest of the kingdom.
Sternfeld is the city of Indianapolis, and they have a bunch of events, so they're pretty awesome. So the next question I have has to do with your other arts and sciences. The question I was going to ask, but then I wanted to stay talking about Discord was, do you make your own garb?
Yeah, I do. Recently I did treat myself and get a set from oh gosh, their name jumped out of my brain. They're in the Ukraine. Everybody thinks they're awesome. They made the t-shirts
I know I think
and
Arm Street. No, I can't remember.
yes, Arm Street.
Is it Arm Street?
Yes.
Go! 10 points!
I did spoil myself and get a late period set from there recently, just because I liked the wine color of the fabric, and it was on a Black Friday sale, and it was like 40% off or something like that. And I'm like, I couldn't beat that.
Nice.
It still amused me that I spent more on that outfit than I did my wedding dress, but
I hear you there. So,
but
so,
I'll actually wear it more than once. I actually have worn it more than once.
so here's a question I've always wanted to ask a fencer.
But
Like, so the fighters, the heavy armored combatants, I know, like, take their armor off and lay them in the sun so the funk gets off of them. But fencers, you're
mhm.
wearing outfits, like you're wearing linen outfits. How many different outfits do you have, and how do you keep it from stinking at Penzic?
Well, I'm behind in my armor, so I only have two pairs of pants and like 1.5 shirts and stuff, and then I have one layer of body armor. Uh, Usually we just get back to camp at Penzic and we all have drying racks and hope for Hella to be doing the good thing with the weather and keeping the rain away and just put it all out on dry inside out on drying racks so that the sun can both help dry and sterilize it.
Nice. Okay. I always wanted to know. Um,
But you also use, at least I do, wear t-shirts underneath. So that helps a lot with absorbing the sweat and stuff between sports bras and t-shirts. So,
right. Okay.
but the sun and air and all that helps too.
Helps. Good. Okay. Because I would felt sad if you didn't have something that you could do. I don't hang out with a lot of anybody's because I'm performing arts at Penzic. That's where I spend all my time. So let's talk about your other dabbles. Scribble, which we sort of talked about. What got you into scribal arts?
I had a hysterectomy and I had to come up with something to do while I was in my indeterminable healing period. So I basically started sketching one day and I started realizing I've never been able to draw in my life. And suddenly I'm just sketching on the back of envelopes or whatever, and it's looking like what I think it should for once. And so I just started drawing and I've done a few mostly blanks, but I did do a scroll that I do know went out. Well, I've done two, but I don't do the calligraphy yet because I've got carpal tunnel, and that's just too many fine, small movements compared to the illumination that I've done so far. But anyway, ADHD trained for Sorry. But the 2 scrolls that I have made that went out was a replacement Cavendish knot scroll for Warder Galleon after his family lost their house in a fire. So I made that for him.
Yeah.
And my son recently got, well, not recently, a year ago and change, got his Dragon's Treasure. And I did make that scroll. And that one went out.
Nice.
I don't know if they've used any of the blanks I've turned in, but some of
Probably.
those were on less than ideal paper because I picked paper that went with the paint that I'd picked out. But I did not know that you weren't supposed to use acrylic and the acrylic paper with the veining, or not veining, the texture to it. So I don't know if those have been used. I'm imagining if they ever are used, it's going to be like a use of last resort.
Oh,
But I have gotten them. So I've got the right materials now. I need to actually get around to having the discipline to tell myself it's okay to work on something. Because a lot of times I have a hard time giving myself the permission to work on my art stuff when I go, oh, I should work on that. And then it's like, but I don't feel like I am worthy. And then it's hard to give myself permission.
Well, I give you
So
complete and total permission to do the thing. Do the thing, Christina. Um, so what are you wearing around your neck? What is that metal disc?
it is well, in reality, it is a washer I picked up at True Value, but it is close enough to a bronze ring because of its coloring.
Oh, you froze. There you
You
are.
there?
Yep, now I'm here.
Sorry.
Okay. So what is a bronze ring? What is that?
It is a grant level award for service and mastery and such in the rapier community.
And isn't that the
So
one
it's
that
like,
has like this ring that's like this big or something that gets put on people?
yes, that is the baby bling ring. The current holder is not the current eligible member. The current eligible member is my cadet sister Maeve, who just recently got awarded the bronze ring at the Tournament of Defense last weekend, which I did not get to attend because moving is a non-fun activity that takes precedence.
So the reason I asked is, first of all, you're wearing a rainbow cord, so yay to that, yay to rainbow cords. But one of the things you mentioned that you do as well is jewelry making. So
Yes.
that has nothing to do with jewelry, but it was a semi nice, yeah, that was a really bad segue. But we're going to pretend that was a great segue and talk about jewelry making. How did you get
Well,
into
I've made
that?
um because it was a thing I could do with shiny things. And I like shiny things, for better or worse. So I've made a lot of necklaces. I usually do the make a loop, put a bead on it, and then make another loop on the other end of the bead, and then create a chain out of beads, essentially. I've done paternoster. I've made earrings. I can make wire rings, but I have not figured out yet how to set stones. I would like to learn someday. But that's one of those time, effort, energy, resources things
Right.
to
And being
do.
a mom and having a full-time job and being a wife, and it's hard to find time for you when you have all these other people who need you and things calling your attention.
Yes. And to complicate that, I've got other people in my life that I am also trying to schedule things with. And, they sometimes feel left out. And I really feel bad for that. But sometimes reality is sucks.
Yeah, I was just I'm taking this class at work, believe it or not, on how to become a better person, a better employee, right? Blah blah blah. But this week's chapter was called Boundaries and how to set boundaries. And my coworker looked at me and said, that I can't even imagine why you need to read this, Caroline. That's my real name. Because you have no problem setting boundaries. And I said, yeah, but when my kids were younger, I did have a hard time setting boundaries because there is no me time when you've got kids.
Yeah, which is part of the reason I went and ran off to Italy for a week.
Yeah, so tell me about that. Where did you go in Italy?
I stayed based out of Rome, and I took a tour group. Not a set tour group thing. I found online these tour groups, and I went to Pompeii, and I went to Tuscany, and then I took a like main highlights of Rome in a day tour, which got me to some of the Vatican Museum, the Sistine Chapel, the Roman Forum, which is the very old parts of Rome that are sticking up out of the ground, and pits that they wind the streets around and over as to not cause problems, and then through the Colosseum.
So are you changing your persona to Italian now?
No, I honestly, that trip was, I've had kind of a hard year.
Mm,
My mom and I were estranged for 20 years, and she died uh, last May of 2023. And so I've been, as the eldest daughter and legal next of kin, I've been dealing with all that. And so there was all that stress. And then there was the renovation stress. And I was just feeling very much like I had too many balls up in the air
mhm.
and very much trying to balance everything. And my brain just broke. And I've got a passport. I've never used it. I'm going somewhere. And I figured I'd go to see Rome because that's a place my dad enjoyed visiting when he was alive and working out in Saudi Arabia. He and his second wife would meet up in Rome and hang out and go check out the museums and everything. So I kind of wanted to see what my dad saw
Mhm.
because I really missed out on a lot of my life with him, which is what led to a lot of the estrangement with my mom and I. And it was just kind of one of those wanting to connect with him in a way, which might not make a lot of sense to anybody but me.
No, it makes sense to me, and I speak for all. So we say it totally makes sense, and that sounds like really good for you. And I'm proud of you for recognizing you needed to do that and then doing it. That's really, really hard for some of us in the SCA especially to say, I need to do something for me and then doing it.
Yeah, after I got back, I was talking to the high school AP math teacher, and she goes, "And you went by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Don't you travel by yourself?" And she goes, "Well, yeah, but when I'm traveling down to like Florida, I'm going to see my friends from college. And when I go travel to Canada, I'm seeing my daughter." And I'm like, and she's like, "I never go any place just to go places by myself." And I'm like, looking at this woman who's probably 13 years older than me. Maybe not. Please, if you ever see this, Miss Stefanago, I am so sorry if I misgauged your age, but you're retiring this year, so I'm guessing. So it's like, just go.
Yeah, do the thing.
If
Do
you have the
the thing.
resources, go. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you can't go by yourself. Just,
Yeah.
get information from people that have gone beforehand. Like I talked to Dr. Best, and he told me be very wary of your immediate surroundings because the pickpocketing and cut purse contingent is much bigger there than we're used to in the States. So, as opposed to not worrying about the greater area, I was more worried about my immediate person. And I took advice that he gave me as far as getting a theft proof bag and wearing it under my coat when I was wearing a coat, and making sure it was always on my front, on my hip, but on my front, not on my side or on my back, but where I could put my hand and kind of rest my hand on it.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you got to go. So we're almost out of time, believe it or not. We have
Wow.
plowed 45 minutes. So last question is what can the SCA do better?
At least from my perspective, make it a lot easier, or understand a little bit more about when women participate on their own, whatever the reason is, that sometimes they need a little help, and, kind of maybe look for it. Because a lot of times I'd be, you know, dealing with having as my gear and expectations as you get into the SCA further and further, obviously your expectations of what your gear look like, and how much stuff you have to take to events, because suddenly you go from, oh, it's okay that you have like one weird set of armor that includes a pair of sweatpants, to and one sword that you got because you were lucky. And then all of a sudden it becomes, okay, so you've got how many swords and how many daggers, and you have to take that into account, and then how much clothes are you taking? Because even for, if I do a full day event that's involving feasts and court and stuff like that, even if it's just court, if it's a fancier event like Candlemas or Christmas tourney, I will try to change for court. Sometimes if it's like an MCAD or a martial rum, I'll just go to court in my armor, whatever. But when it's the court that I have to change for, well, there I show up. If it's a day trip, I show up at the event. I'm probably in jeans and a t-shirt, and then I have to go find a bathroom or whatever, change into armor, and then after that change again into court garb, and then change into stuff to go home in. And I know a lot of other people do the same thing, but when it's a single person doing it, especially when they've got strength issues or whatever, all of a sudden it's like just carrying all that just gets exhausting.
Right.
And that kind of goes out to maybe another part of, I don't know if it's a DEI thing that they need to look at, is for women that do participate alone, how can we make their experience a stronger and better thing, rather than just going, oh, well, they're adults, they can handle it. Not everybody can handle it.
So I tell this story. I was with Elise Catherine, Countess Elise Catherine, and this was like the year after she was queen. Okay, so this was a long time
Mhm.
ago. My eldest, who is now 25, was maybe 6 or 7. And she traveled with Rowan and I to an SCA event. And we were all walking to the entrance. It was Val Day. We were walking to the entrance, and she got ahead of us because I have like a bunch of her stuff, my stuff, Rowan's stuff, and Rowan, and I'm following her in. And this mob of sycophants come and get her and glom onto her. And oh, Catherine, open the door, let her in. And the door literally slams in my face. I was invisible. I wasn't anybody important. I was nobody special, struggling with her stuff, my stuff, Rowan's stuff, and a 6-year-old. And I was nothing. I was nobody. And what you're saying is just bringing back the memory of that, where finally a gentleman came up and opened the door for me and helped me so I could go into the restroom to get, Countess Elise Catherine her stuff. But it was that invisibility that I think is really hard to understand. And that, I guess, that goes back to why we have the show, right? Because you could be viewed as invisible in the SCA. You're older, you're
Yeah.
plump, you're married, so you're not looking for a hottie. You're a
Well,
mom.
I'm also poly, and I've got, a couple of relationships in the SCA.
Okay,
So
okay. Anyway, we're invisible. Women like us
yeah,
are
but
invisible in the SCA. And you're just saying, can we please start recognizing our visibility, that we are people and that we need help too? And a lot of women our age, I'm a little older than you, I know, are
yeah.
have disabilities. And we should start thinking about how we can help those women with disabilities around events and not be invisible. You froze again.
Hello?
There we
Uh,
are.
there you
Okay.
are.
So did I sum it up pretty good?
And some women, and then you froze.
Oh, well, just that we're
But
we're we're invisible and we need to not be invisible.
yes, especially when you're getting started, and you don't really know anybody. It's like it takes, if you don't have your hands full of stuff, it takes 3 seconds to say, "Hey, I see you've got 2 bags. Can I carry one of them?"
Hmm.
Especially if you're walking in the same direction.
Right, right. All right.
Otherwise, I do that a lot, and a lot of times I get told, "No, I'm okay," and I'm like, "That's great, but at least I've offered, and it makes me feel better." And that could just because it's an act of service thing, and sometimes I really like doing the acts of service thing.
I
And some
agree.
people are very much, I must take on the mountain, and I've been taking on the mountain most of my life for various reasons. So when people offer to take some of it from me, I also wonder sometimes when those people say, "No, I've got it," if it's
Christina has frozen. Um, we're gonna give her a couple minutes to see if she manages to come back. Well, she's gone. So, thank you, Christina, for coming on Simply Skating No Title Required. This is, wait, she's coming back. Yay! Christina is coming
yay, there we
back.
go.
Okay, so go ahead.
But yeah, just be nice, see if you can help people, especially the new ones. The more you can show new ones that you care, the better.
Right.
Otherwise, they might run away. And, it's really hard that first, you know, I'd say 6 months, you're still learning all the terms and, what does that hat mean? And to realize that you have now all this stuff that you also have to carry with you because you decided to get into combat, or whatever form of combat that is, or suddenly you've decided that, hey, I want to take every ingredient with me, and at my day shade I'm going to cook for people all day, and you're only in for 6 months, and you just think you're going to do that just because it sounds like a fun idea, but you've got all this stuff, and it's like, just help people out, be
Right.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody be nice and help other people. Okay, we are out of time. Thank you so much for being my guest today, Christina. And she's frozen again. Oh, boo. All right, you have been watching Simply Scadian, no title required. We'll see you in 2 weeks when we have another wonderful special guest for you. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.